thank you for. Okay, thank you. We are starting the recording. Thank you for being with us tonight. I think with the hot weather, weekday traffic, weekday activities, and thank you all for joining us, especially Andy, a good friend of ours in Beijing, and Professor James Yuan from Taipei. Thank you for joining us. And we have our good friend also, His Excellency Pak Fasil in Jakarta, and also our colleague from the Vietnamese Embassy in Jakarta as well. And we also have friends connecting from Cambodia, I think, and they are members of the Indonesian Japan Friendship Association. So welcome. Okay, our topic tonight is about China and Taiwan. Navigating the cross-strait tension and its implication to Asia-Pacific security. Yeah, I think for us in Indonesia, I think this issue has been, people can say it's not the main issue in Indonesia at the moment, but I think a lot of Indonesians are beginning to actually worry about increasing tension, cross-strait relations, and then you have the United States also playing a part, and how would tension have its implications towards Asia Pacific security and also to Indonesia in general. So I think tonight, please, we are welcoming Mr. Andy Tian from GGI in Beijing. Thank you for joining us. He's one of our dear colleague and one of the person who are pretty well versed in maritime security in the region, and we appreciate and we thank him for joining us tonight and providing insight and perspective. And Professor James Yuan from Taiwan, thank you for joining us. And now, yeah, I mean, we're not trying to pit you against one another here. I think we all agree. We all here tonight because we want the best for the region. We want everybody to be in good shape, to have a good future together, and that's why we're here tonight. And I think this is the spirit of our discussion. Is regardless of differences, regardless of whatever dispute we may have. I mean, we look forward to always fostering and developing friendships among us, because we believe that by having more communication, having more dialogues between us, not just with China and Taiwan, but also other players in the region like Indonesia, Vietnam, and Japan. I think it will push us closer to a better age, because I think the age of Asia is looming, is inevitable. Asia is going to be the future of the world for the foreseeable future. And okay, and we have Pak Benny Sukadis, my good friend. Hello, Ben. Ready, Ben? Okay. Okay, now.
Yes.
Okay.
Start from Andy.
For start, we go with Andy because we have been missing him for so much. We haven't heard it from him for a while. We haven't had a lively discussion for a while. So I will give the floor to Andy to start his presentation. Go ahead, Andy. You have the forum now.
Thank you, Rira. Thank you, and I would like to first thank the organizer LAPSI for inviting me to be with this very important issue. We know that Taiwan issue not only concerns the two sides across the strait, it also concerns Indonesia, concerns Vietnam, concerns Philippines, concerns many Asian countries, and not only many countries, even concerns the interest of the whole world. Because if there is a right-armed conflict across the strait, and with the major intervention of the United States, I think the consequence will be hugely disastrous, not only for this region but also for the whole world. That's why I always say that, and I understand the concerns from many other countries, and I understand why they are concerned with the situation in Taiwan. So first, let me say this. And then before I present some of my perspectives, I would like to repeat some of the basic facts and figures. Many West scholars are very familiar with, but intentionally turn a blind eye to it. Anyway, we lawyer, because my background is legal, we lawyer turn to base our arguments always upon law and facts. So this year is 2024. So this year marked the 306th anniversary of Koxinga, Zheng Chenggong, Koxinga's recovery of Taiwan from Dutch. Second, the title of the Constitution of Taiwan provincial government is still basically the same as it was made in mainland China in 1945, Constitution of the Republic of China. So the map of the Republic of China covered even now the Mongolia the Outer Mongolia in the Qing dynasty. Third, one China policy has been endorsed either multilaterally by international community via UN resolutions. And I think you have heard the remarks of the spokesperson of the United Nations a few days ago, or bilaterally by most sovereign states around the world who established formal diplomatic relations with China. And finally, Taiwan question is a consequence of Chinese national war, and many residents in Taiwan are from mainland China. And my colleague, James Yuan, Professor Yuan, his father is among them, and he even has, I think he has some siblings in Hunan province, China. So that's some basic facts and figures, which is facts, but many Western scholars are very familiar with it, but intentionally turn a blind eye to it. So that's the first information I'd like to share with you. Then I think all of you are not here to hear the official lines. So for the following presentation, I'm going to share with you some of my personal individual perspectives on the Taiwan issue. First, why Taiwan issue become an issue? I mean, what is the essence of the Taiwan issue? So for me, the essence and the root cause of the Taiwan issue is that the United States does not allow a normal country to exercise its legitimate right to restore its territorial sovereignty, integrity, and unification, and even use it as a card to safeguard its hegemony. So the United States is the only country in the world exercising such lawless hegemonism. But this illegal, wrongful precedent cannot be the reason and basis for the United States to continue to make such mistakes. So, in my opinion, the United States is the state that is most unwilling to see a peaceful reunification. Why? Because the peaceful reunification would make it lose its best weapon of pushing big power competition. Because the peaceful reunification would militarily and strategically get rid of one of its best choke points, similar to an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Because the peaceful reunification would deprive it an excuse to increase military presence in the region, and because blah, blah, blah. So that's my takeaway about the essence of the Taiwan issue. And second, one of the very sensitive issue, but regularly discussed by the scholars, does the United States have legal basis to militarily intervene on Taiwan issue? So if you look at the news website of American military website, either the Stars and the Stripes or the American News, you would see many discussions about how the U.S. military ground forces will set foot in Taiwan or intervene. I think today is the day when the Ministry of National Defense of China hold the regular conference. During the regular conference, there was a question regarding one military scheme, military plan by the United States. That is to send as much as drones to Taiwan, so that if there is an armed conflict arise across the strait, the Taiwan Strait would become a hell. But of course, a hell not only for the mainland China, but also a hell for the Taiwanese people. So you could see that they never take the lives of the people across country into any concerns. But do they have a legal basis to intervene militarily? We now had dialogues with the U.S. experts on this topic. So as for the legal basis for U.S. military intervention, 80% of the United States scholars, they would cite protecting democracy. And 15 of them would cite Taiwan Relations Act and their domestic law. And of course, there is a few of them, only 5% of them, who would frankly admitting that strategically, geopolitically, and militarily, the U.S. would not afford to lose Taiwan. So given that the international law as reflected in the United Nations charters only prescribe two scenarios of legitimate use of force. That is, first, United Nations Security Council Chapter 4 authorization, and then second, self-defense. But for these two exceptions, none of the excuses I mentioned earlier falls into those legal bases. So just imagine when your country is taking back one separating province, the U.S. showed up and saying that we can militarily intervene because of those reasons. Does the U.S. have the legal basis in international law to use force in that scenario? I think if that is the truth, any country could freely use force by claiming to protect democracy or simply by enacting a domestic law. Of course, the U.S. Do not need legal basis to use force. They have done that in former Yugoslavia, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and in Afghanistan. We could expect to see more in the future. It is simply because, as the U.S. Secretary of State Albright said in an interview, that for American interest, the loss of thousands of Iraqi children's lives worth it. So the so-called rule-based order is the touchstone that best reflects American hypocrisy and double standards, because the rule is selected by the U.S. and only applied to others. I think the minimum requirement of moral integrity is to apply the same law to yourself as to the others. But what we have seen in Russia-Ukraine conflict and Gaza war is totally different. So there are genocide in Gaza war, but there are many senators, lawmakers in the United States. They are trying to make laws to sanction the ICC officials. So totally double standards. That's quite obvious. And second, around Asia and even globally, Taiwan issue is fundamentally a negative colonial legacy that results from the Western philosophy of global governance. They have done that in India versus Pakistan, DPRK versus ROK, and they have also done a lot in Africa and Latin America. They created sources of troubles and let those related parties fight with each other to weaken themselves. However, in most cases, they are ethnically, culturally the same identity, just as people across the straits. So, I mean, we have the same blood, we have the same cultural identity, we speak the same language, we eat the same food, but just like any other cases I have just mentioned, they intentionally leverage on that. I will not expand more on this topic too much. Anyway, since Taiwan issue is in Asia and it relates to China, although it is the same as the reunification between American South and North, between East Germany and West Germany, but because it is in China, so they will say no. That's the only reason. And then the first point I would like to share with you, how to avoid the Ukrainization of Taiwan. So there are many comparisons between Russia-Ukraine conflict and Taiwan. Let me first clarify, they are totally different because the use of force by China for the purpose of reunification is not an invasion or aggression and not a violation of international law. Then what does it mean with regard to avoiding Ukrainization of Taiwan? It means that how to avoid the consequence of Taiwan issue being smartly manipulated by the United States as a strategic leverage to strategically weaken China and all the Asian countries as a whole, just as the US did with the Ukraine-Russian conflict. So opposite to the official line put by the Western governments, even many Western scholars think that there are many, they also agree that the root causes of the conflict, of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, is the expansion of NATO. So the Russia responded just as the United States did in the 1962 Cuban crisis. Of course, we have sympathy with the Ukrainian people. So the US is quite smart to play the leverage game this time to force all its NATO and non-NATO allies to stand with the United States because they have no other choices. Why they have no other choices? Because unlike the 2003 Iraq War, where the US is the aggressor, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia on the surface is the aggressor. So if you are a person from Ukraine, you think that you are defending your motherland, yeah, that's okay. If you are a people from EU, you think you are defending the rule of law, the international law, yes, it's understandable. But I think that the essence is that you have no other choice because unlike the 2003 Iraq War, you can only stand with law, with democracy. At this time, US is not the aggressor. So they could very smartly leverage on that. But finally, consequently, it's a kind of one stone killing many birds. It killed, of course, the priority of this for the US is to strategically weaken the Russia. But at the same time, it also weakened EU and also all the other countries around the world. So that's what I take, how to avoid the consequences of Russia-Ukraine conflict to happen in Asia-Pacific. And also, I'd like to say, as I mentioned as the first start, the Taiwan issue concerns countries in this region, including Indonesia and many other countries who are in this conference. But in my opinion, so those interests cannot, the Taiwan issue concerns the interest of all countries in this. We understand this, but these interests cannot be used for moral hijacking to prevent China from reunifying Taiwan province. We understand your concerns, but they cannot be used as a hostage to morally hijack China. I think what we should do, because as we can see, when the US bombed Syria, bombed Iraq, bombed former Yugoslavia, they never take care of those interests. But I'm not making a cocky argument. What I mean is that China is a country who is most unlikely to fight a war across the straits. You know, we have a military philosophy, the art of war by Sun Tzu. So I think the people across the Taiwan Strait could find a way, because they have the wisdom in the ancient system, to solve the problem peacefully. And also, I think the Asian countries will not be stupid enough as the European countries to fight not for themselves, to fall into the security traps set up by the United States. What I mean security trap, I mean that so the US is always hyping up tensions in Asia Pacific. So they will relate every normal relations every normal exchange between China and other countries to national security concerns. So if you buy these ideas and devote your resources to buy more weapons, and then you will lose the window opportunity to develop your country. So that's also the what I always emphasize as for the China-US competition. So this competition is imposed upon China. We do not ask for it. So finally, I would like to say also the Asian people will be wise enough to avoid the consequence like Russia-Ukraine conflicts. We will be, with Asian wisdom, with Asian culture, we will find a way to peacefully resolve this issue and not falling into the security trap set by the United States. So I will stop here. Thank you, William.
谢谢 Andy, thank you. And I think before we start the discussion, I think we should move to the next speaker, Professor James Yuan from NCCU Taiwan. Professor, I'll give you the floor. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the participants. Thank you for the moderator, and thank you for Benny, my good friend, who invited me and organized this such a great webinar. And also I thank my friend Andy Tian, in which I think the most of the participants right here would like to see how we would interact with each other. Many people outside from Taiwan and China right now, or at least in the recent years, have been seeing that there's a conflict, there's a unrest, there's a chaotic situation, and not between two sides, and which both sides do not talk. And I think that might not be true. That might not be true because just I think most of you have seen the poster of this webinar, in which that could never happen in any single international event. For what? For two flags to put each other, and that I think that cannot be happening because of the China side would not accept this. However, I think right here, me and Andy, my friend, have shown I think to some extent a good example of how two sides are still able to talk. That means still in Taiwanese people's mind, deep in our minds, that we most of people would like to see a peaceful situation, if not reunification at the moment. I have to emphasize not at the moment, because I think I explained this to many people, especially to my friend Andy Tian. There is a concern, or I would describe it as a worry, that if Taiwan is being unified, even peacefully, by China, then as people in Taiwan have seen what happened in Hong Kong or in some parts of the China, that because Taiwan, I have to say Taiwan has been enjoying the democratic kind of society for at least several decades already. So they have used to people are able to vote, people are able to say things that they like to say, and without worry too much. That is why if at the moment they see unification as a big worry, doesn't mean that most of the people doesn't mean that people in Taiwan cannot accept unification as one of the options, I have to say. Okay, so let me just briefly explain why I think the points that Andy has pointed out during his talk minutes ago. The major is the United States. So that means the U.S. is the key reason that caused the China-Taiwan relations deterioration, caused Russia, Ukraine, caused the Iraq, or Afghanistan, many places. Okay, I respect Andy's points. Nevertheless, I think if you see the history of Taiwan ever since 1949 or even before 1949, when the United States treated the then Chiang Kai-shek government in the 1940s, and then after 1949, when Chiang Kai-shek retreated to China, the influence on Taiwan has been heavy. So that means the whatever United States politically, economically, militarily, on defense issue, on security issue, on many aspects of the systems in Taiwan, political system, even educational system, even language, we adopt American English. So that shows the heavy influence of the United States on Taiwan. Let me list it, all the former presidents in Taiwan or ROC government ever since 1949, after a retreat to Taiwan. Chiang Kai-shek has been a couple of decades as the president of Taiwan, and that was the time when first and the second Taiwan Strait crisis happened in the 1950s, and that was also the time Taiwan was able to sign the Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States until 1979, when the United States terminated formal relations with Taiwan. So that security guarantee has been crucial. I still remember when I was, I think, 8 years old, when people saw the TV. I was 8 years old at the time, when I think Jimmy Carter administration terminated the formal relations with Taiwan, with Republic of China government. The entire island or country was shaken. That means all the people are worried. And I heard my mom talking to our neighbors. Well, what should we do? U.S. is leaving us, and we're now in very dangerous situation. They worry so much about it. So at that time, people automatically donate our money. Even as an 8-year-old child, I used the little coins in my piggy bank to donate to the government in order to build a fighter jet fleet. So that was built based on the people's donation in order to build a squadron of fighters to defend our country. Because of what? Because United States have left us. There was no longer a mutual defense treaty. Taiwan has to be totally on our own. However, after 1949, after 1979, there's a Taiwan Relations Act that still play a heavy role on Taiwan to make sure that United States can offer the defensive weapons, at least to protect ourselves. So that on the other hand shows the heavy influence on Taiwan. Okay, so that was then the Chiang Ching-kuo, the son of Chiang Kai-shek's was the president. And then when Taiwan gradually moved, we call democratic movement, moved to the President Lee Teng-hui, and also then Chen Shui-bian. That's a democratization of Taiwan. Again, United States played a still heavy role, and ever since then, the evolution has not changed. The trend of the U.S. influence until former President Ma Ying-jeou government, he adopted a I would not say, people would describe it as a pro-China. I would say a China-friendly policy. That means we, Taiwan ROC government or Taiwan government will stay in the middle. We are friendly to United States, we are friendly to China, and also we are friendly to Japan. That's the three most important countries play heavy roles on Taiwan. Taiwan's society, on Taiwan's political system, Taiwan's economy, and in every part of the world, in Taiwan, because Ken mentioned that Taiwan is on the colonial era, colonized by Japan for 50 years, and then to China. I agree with Tian that we speak the same language, we eat the same food, we have almost the same culture, we study the same literature, Chinese literature, and my father is from Hunan. That's the product. I describe it as a product of the Chinese Civil War. So when Chiang Kai-shek led a million military and civilians to retreat to Taiwan, and my father was one of them. And then that kind of family, and then gradually to build up the what we are having now in Taiwan. So to a large extent, I'm still telling my son and my daughter that you can, of course, you can treat yourself as a 100% Taiwanese, but never forget you have at least 1/4 of the blood is from Hunan province, China, because I have 50% of my blood or DNA at least from Hunan, China, and my father is Hakka, Taiwan. Of course, Hakka originally is also from Guangdong province, China as well. So so I owe it to my son. You can because the current environment and educationally, and also the media reporting, and also I would describe that the surveys when they ask, especially young people, that how would you treat yourself as a Taiwanese, as a Chinese, or as both? I think that the very clear trend in the past 20 years, very clearly, if 20 years ago, at least there's still like something like 40 to 50% people treat themselves as both Taiwanese and the Chinese. But now that percentage has gone to pretty low. There is a reason for that, and the reason is due to media, due to the textbook, education, contents of the education, and also political issue as well. Of course, I would not judge how government would do on that part of the issue, but I at least I can tell that is the current trend. If you ask most of the Taiwanese people on the street, I think majority of them, well, of course, I'm Taiwanese rather than a Chinese. But myself, I always treat myself as both, because at least I would never deny the ethnic part of my DNA that is from China. So in terms of how to avoid the likely or unlikely conflict between Taiwan and China, I think both sides. When I teach in the class, I think one of the students is right here in one of the participants in the webinar. That both sides need to have a dialogue, in which this kind of a dialogue we cannot find cannot be found right now or in the past few years, in which this kind of dialogue was able to be quite active during 2008 and between 2008 and 2016 during the Manchu era. So that is the basic point. I think that the government's we call mainland China policy of Taiwan play a heavy role for that. So that means should we be away from the United States in order to have a better cross-strait relations? I don't think so, because I always have to say that without the United States, Taiwan will be in a critical condition, because the security and the is not protection. The security guarantee by the United States has always be a play a quite big role on the safety or the security of Taiwan. If without the United States, if we totally rely on ourselves, that could be I have to that's not reliable. So in other means, if there is no military security, how can we still guarantee the security of Taiwan? That means that both sides have to have a dialogue channel between two sides. Both sides have to be friendly to each other, and both sides have to avoid those unnecessary languages. I think sometime the Chinese government has been magnifying what the Taiwanese leaders have said, because I told Andy Tian, for example, last year when we or 2 years ago when we met in Bali first time, and last year when we met in Sri Lanka, I told you that if you think about Taiwan government of our former president Tsai, she has been stable, predictable, and she never said that Taiwan will become independent. And she always emphasized that we are not changing the status quo. If you take this seriously, then that will relieve your worry that Taiwan is going to independent. Then we have to prepare ourselves to use force against Taiwan. Why I say that? Because there's only harm to both sides if there's a conflict. Judged by the economy of China, judged by the oil route crossing the Taiwan Strait, judged by the undersea cable passing from Taiwan and then go all the way to north to Shanghai to Japan. If that part is destructive, then the sea line of communication or the data or fiber optic channel will also be destructive. That only cause harm to both sides without doing anything good. So I would say that there are things that definitely can be avoided, and this is the issue I want to say. So in terms of the I think Andy mentioned the hellscape, that kind of situation over Taiwan Strait. I think that was just one of the scenarios planned by the U.S. in Indo-Pacific. Doesn't mean that it has to be carried out or conducted, because they are preparing using hundreds of or thousands of unmanned platforms in order to deal with in case of invasion from China, and then Taiwan can defend ourselves for at least for the couple of days or weeks until the U.S. are able to arrive to help. So I always have to say that in order to you want a peace, then you have to prepare for war. So that doesn't mean that we want war, but if we prepare, then it's less likely, or it will strengthen our stance, our foundation of negotiation. So if we do not prepare ourselves, if we do not if we are not trying to strengthen the defense capability of Taiwan, how to strengthen the defense capability of Taiwan, I think there are two ways. First is by ourselves. Second is by our international friends. That means mainly from the United States. So if we do not receive defensive weapons from the U.S., then we are not able to defend ourselves. If we do not have a capable defensive capabilities, then we will not in the parallel position in order to talk with China, in order to negotiate with China, in order to have a dialogue with China. So that means at the time we are trying to avoid war. At the same time, we also have to preparing ourselves in order to make ourselves feel safe. So that is my perspective.
Thank you, Professor James Yuan. I think before we move on to the discussion, I think Pak Fasil just raised hand. Maybe Pak Fasil want to add something, please. Pak Fasil, the floor is yours.
I have a little question. Is there already a discussion, or we should listen to someone else? If you open the discussion, I have a question. It's very simple.
Okay, you feel free to ask the question because we both have.
Yes. Tian Shichen Tongzhe, I'm really glad Mr. Andy is back with us. So I have to say something. Well, listen, I'm a diplomat, so I'm not in the position to discuss anything related to the China cross-strait affairs. Like, yeah, you understand, right? So I will not be raising this issue. However, Mr. Andy mentioned very sensitive issues that I'm not speaking Indonesian. Something asking me that I'm speaking English. Say, okay, right. So the sensitive issue related to Ukraine. That's why I have to respond, right? I have to react to that, only to that, and then I'll have a question to Mr. Andy. First of all, I would say, "Si vis pace para bellum," as Latin people say. You want a peace, you prepare for war. And Mr. Yuan, you know, if he comes from the Hunan province, Hunan is the heroic province and the district of my favorite food. I love Hunan. Hunan 菜我最喜欢的，我就怕不辣，知道。So yeah, the most prominent military leaders come from many provinces of China, but also from Hunan. It's famous, like Mao Zedong himself is from Hunan, right? So
okay.
that's right. So regarding Ukraine, right? I picked up from Mr. Andy's message that for whatever happens in the world, we blame the United States of America. That's a position. I respect everything that is being like expressed. However, regarding not the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, but the aggressive war of Russia against Ukraine, I must say that I agree with the position of Mr. Andy that Asian nations are very clever not to start the war. Unlike European people, particularly Mr. Putin, who effectively started the aggressive war against the neighboring country. So that was a very stupid decision of a European or Eurasian leader, whoever he is. That was stupid. And however, I want to mention this. This was the decision of the Russian dictator solely. Nothing to do with the United States, European Union, or whoever else, China, Mongolia, Argentina, Brazil, South Africa, India, etc., etc. There was the decision by the Russian dictator. And there is, I repeat, nothing to do with the United States of America or any other country in the world. That's my remark regarding the Russian aggression in Ukraine. My question is very simple. As a historian, as an academician, in the past, of course, but not now, but I still like the analysis. I still follow the trends and trying to be stay in tune. So, you know that I just give you an example. You know that regarding the Ukrainian war, like Russian war against Ukraine, there are many peace proposals. One of them is a proposal prepared by the People's Republic of China, which Ukraine would never be able to accept. for various reasons. I'm not going to discuss that. But my question is, does China, I mean the People's Republic of China, have the plan how to make the unification happen? It must be not just the plan, it must be plan A, plan B, and plan C. And if I get you right, both A, B, C plans will be peaceful plans. So does the government of the People's Republic of China or the academician circles have the plan how to make the unification happen in a peaceful way? Because the statement that people are clever, they will understand, doesn't work here. We are academicians, we're analytics. I want to hear the plan, if we have one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Fasil.
Thank you, Vito. Good, you speak very good Chinese, but still I would like to respond in English because there are many other audiences. First, I'd like to say about the causes of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I quite understand the analysis you presented, but still, I think we have a different understanding about the root causes of this Russia-Ukraine conflict. It's not, we do not think that the U.S. has nothing to do with war. To the quite opposite, I think still the U.S. is the root causes of the armed conflict. Because when the Berlin Wall fought, I mean the United States promised not 1 inch. There was one quite famous book written by American scholar, which was published in I think in 2021 or 2022. The title is Not 1 Inch. So the West has promised. So the line will be the same as the Berlin Wall has fought on that exact day. But then the NATO expansion expanded many times. I will not repeat the exact fact. So when NATO expanded to Ukraine, then of course it will be a national security concern for Russia. Just as, I mean, when Russia placed a missile system in Cuba, although it's a decision between two sovereign nations, it has nothing to do with the United States. But they are always it nearly triggered a war between Russia and the United States. Why? I think the logic is the same. So I cannot agree that U.S. has nothing to do with this war armed conflict. Just as I said, I think the United States is quite clever, quite smart in Russia-Ukraine conflict. It weakened everybody except for the United States themselves. So for Ukrainians, for EU nations, for non-NATO U.S. allies, we understand your actions, your measures, your responses. Yeah, you are. I mean, all of your actions. I mean, it's a logical reaction, but you have no other choice. You can only choose. But why this happened? I think people in this conference should have to have a second thought about that. So that's my response to your third point, first point. And second is about the you said the peaceful plan, whether we have an exact peaceful plan to reunify Taiwan. I think actually we nearly did it. I mean, before Tsai Ing-wen came into office, you know, the cross-strait relation did not deteriorate overnight. So back in 2015, we saw the first ever meeting of top leaders across the street since China. Since China is split into two parts because of civil war. At that time, a lasting peace is just one step away. But then the good momentum was changed since Tsai Ing-wen came to power. But before 2015, there are many active engagements between mainland and China. So Taiwan, there are many Taiwanese who invested in China, who bought houses in China. They are also married between the two parts. So everything is going to the good direction. I think if there is no intervention, I think that good momentum will turn into a reality of peaceful reunification. So that's my response to your second question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I think before we continue to the discussion, I think we still have one more speaker, my good friend, Pak Benny Sukadis. Okay, Benny.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Benny. You have the floor.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because I am the last speaker, so I will be making it short, maybe 5 minutes. So because I'm representing in Indonesian side, so I would like to highlight a few food of thought about the Indonesian foreign policy under Prabowo and Asia Pacific. So I think we have been discussing for the last almost 30 minutes about the relation between China and Taiwan. I think Indonesian position is very clear that the relation between China and Taiwan is merely is intrastate, which is because Indonesia has taken a stand on one China policy, which is we are acknowledging the Beijing as one government. So I think this is how Indonesia think or perspective on this issue. But on that thought, but beside that, Indonesian has been known that we have we call it free and active foreign policy. But I mean, free and active foreign policy doesn't mean that we have to be neutral, but it just depends on how each president will define their foreign policy strategy. But at least the basics Indonesian foreign policy, mostly I think for the next government, based on the strategic interest and historical emphasis on non-alignment and his support of peaceful and coexistence and diplomacy, as we since for the last 1 year or Prabowo has explained that he keen on doing a diplomacy or keen on having a dialogue with the other countries, small countries, big countries, on any issue and any aspect. So I think this is why Prabowo has another is quite different with the previous president, the current president. So I think the key aspect of the Prabowo will be emphasis on regional stability and peace, which is Prabowo foreign policy probably likely to maintain the peace and stability in Asia Pacific region. Of course, Indonesia has constantly advocated for peaceful relation and of dispute, adherence to international law. And also, I think many times also Pak Prabowo has says that there are some values that we are can be used in international relations, which call it Asian way or ASEAN way. I think that's comprised of constant acting of dialogue with each other and having good discussion and with each other, then we can find solution. Next, I think the second aspect is non-alignment. Of course, under Prabowo administration, he will continue to champion a non-alliance statement, alliance stance, and as he mentioned in his campaign and also his speech, also in what do you call it, the Shangri-La Dialogue in the early of this month and June in Singapore. I think it's mean avoiding alignment with major power like United States or China, instead of seeking act of mediator or peace broker in regional conflict. I think, for example, I think it's mostly, it's focused on his Indonesian neighborhood. For example, in South Asia, they are we have many dispute with Malaysia and also with the Philippines. I think that's why Indonesia, especially Indonesian government, will like to have to navigate not only how to become a mediator in this conflict, but also in terms of a complex relation between China and Taiwan. Of course, the Prabowo will be advocating for dialogue and peaceful solution. The third is probably, yeah, of course, I think because Prabowo has a military background, I think he would like to support all the centrality of ASEAN, because ASEAN can be, what do you call it, spearhead of leading of any mitigating conflict and fostering cooperation between its member, but also hopefully would like to emphasize also how to discuss to address sensitive issues like South China Sea and cross-strait relation. I think Indonesia as a leading member of ASEAN likely under Prabowo will promote ASEAN lead mechanism for conflict and dialogue. And the fourth, I think for the last, I think we will know that Prabowo for the last, because he's now his current Minister of Defense, I think he's been active in defense diplomacy. Why? Because he would like to acquire more capable military weapon system in Indonesia. I think we have a long-term strategic planning how Indonesia would like to equip their defense capability in the air, in the navy, and in the armed force. I think that's why Indonesia would like to enhance military cooperation and how to build confidence in any country, not only China but also all other big countries, small countries. But also probably the Prabowo will be strengthening defense ties, both regional and global power. And Indonesia will aim to balance relation and reduce the risk of conflict. This includes maintaining open channel of communication with China and US and other key players to prevent escalation in Taiwan Strait. I think I will stop there, Mr. Wira. I think thank you very much for your attention, and we hope we'll have a lively discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Bedi. Okay, I think we have 3 presentation already, and before I start the discussion with everybody, I think I would like to ask questions. I think to both Professor James and to Andy. I think how is the cross-strait communication going right at the moment right now? Because for us, like in Indonesia, I mean, Professor James Yuan raised a good point. I think for the rest of the world, we see China and Taiwan as yeah, two side, in a standoff, everything very hostile, very tensions very high. But you just said that, I mean, actually communication is quite good between the 2 countries. So I think one of the questions I think I'm representing a lot of my colleagues here is, what are the current mechanism, for cross-strait communication, and how effective are they? And does economic interdependence help with this communication, or is there any other factor at play? I think I would probably give to Pak James Yuan to answer this first. Please, Professor.
Yes, I think maybe you misinterpreted my previous point. My communication with, at least with Andy is pretty good. Nevertheless, in the past 8 years or so, the communication or dialogue between 2 sides of Taiwan Strait has almost come to zero. And Tian said in 2015, almost reached to the point that leaders from both sides were able to meet and talk to break the ice in Singapore. That was unprecedented. That was since 1949 until 2015. President Ma and Xi Jinping were able to meet and talk. And then because Taiwan changed the government, changed the political regime, and the government has a different thoughts, I have to say, about the cross-strait. And then I have to be honest that the cross-strait relations started to deteriorate. And that, I think, as when my student here, he's an Indonesian. He's in Taiwan for a couple of years studying PhD, and he's my teaching assistant. He can see the points, I think, pretty clear. And to many people's mind in Taiwan, people like a good relations with China. Doesn't mean that they they like their political system, but at least what this is no harm for Chinese people, Chinese tourists coming to Taiwan to spend money, to do sightseeing, to invest, to do business. There are also a lot of people in Taiwan who like to travel in China, and because there's a Tibet, there's a Sichuan, there's a Gansu province, there's a lot, tons of beautiful places. So that's from the civilian, from people's mind. They like to do business. They like to get education. Not because I have just, for example, I have just I think less than 2 weeks ago, the QS World University ranking. I think Peking University or has been ranked a top 10 or top 15 university in the world. So that shows the very advanced advancement of huge progress of the Chinese education. So nevertheless, the political side, the communication between two sides, official communication channel between two sides has almost come to zero. No, that means that there is no dialogue, official dialogue between two sides. For example, there was 2 or 3 incidents in Kinmen, which is offshore islands of Taiwan, and which 2 of the Taiwanese people they have been not captured but just detained in China at the moment, and one has been released. The other one, because he has a bit of a military background, and he has been held in the Chinese side for 3 months, even though he has been treated not well, but he's still been detained. So because of what? Because two sides will not have a proper channel to deal with this, and that if that situation happened during 2008 and 2016, that time when Taiwan had a policy to stay in the middle, and that means Taiwan had a policy does not specifically treat China as an enemy, but treat it as a entity that we can be friendly with. Same as that we have been very friendly with the United States, and we have been very friendly with Japan. So that means when Benny has just said, not either we call it non-alignment or we keep it in neutral. We are not tilted to either side. However, the current situation is Taiwan has been tilted to one side, while at the same time has been moved further and further and further away from the other. And you guys know which side what I mean. We keep further away, and which side we get much closer. You guys know what I mean. So that has resulted to the current situation. That means there is almost no communication channel. I mean, official communication. However, the civilian engagement are still there. The business engagement are still there, and especially the voices from the civilian side. For example, the chairman of Taiwan-China Commercial Association, is a Taiwanese businessman, has always been urging the Taiwanese government that we have to have an open policy toward China. But I think that the situation is it happened at the same time, because I told Tian that one of the key reasons is, unfortunately, the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping. Because if we think before 2012, before Xi came to power, that's a huge policy change in China. So ever since Xi came to power, we have seen more and more, put this way, aggressive measures has been taken towards nearby country, towards the region, and even in the area. So that means that we have to take this consideration that not because of you cannot just blame the Taiwan side, but because that we are worried about the policy you are taking. And if we, for example, Ken, you said Mr. Hamilton, Vice Hamilton asked you, how would you say, how has China to plan to unify Taiwan? At least from my perspective, I am from the political spectrum in Taiwan. I'm towards the central, towards the blue part. If I treat myself, that kind of people, even for people like me, I would have a worry that at the moment, if Taiwan is unified by China, then I would be a little bit afraid because Xi Jinping is in power. Andy, I told you that I explained this to you before, so you can understand. At least people like me are still concerning that situation. So that, not to mention that the other part, the rest of the majority of the people in Taiwan, which are now they treat themselves or to some extent they support Taiwan independence, but I still have to say that the majority of the people in Taiwan understand the danger of independence. That happened when the result of the January 2024 election, because President Lai votes 40% of the vote, while the other 60% of the vote, they did not vote for Lai. But I think those 60% of the people, they prefer a better cross-strait relations because they see that as a key point. Because I told actually my student, I told the people in the class, I told people of my international friends, Taiwan's foreign policy is almost based on Taiwan's cross-strait relations or cross-strait policy. Based on what? Just judged by 8 years rule by the former President Ma Ying-jeou. For those 8 years, Taiwan did not lose one country which recognized Taiwan at then. And ever since 2016 until last year, Taiwan has been losing 7 or 8 or 9 countries in the world. So now only a little bit more than 10, like 12, 13 or 14 countries and small countries recognizing Taiwan. So that shows the key issue. So at the moment, to your question, Helen, that unfortunately right now Taiwan has no official dialogue, but we have the measures here. We have a cross-strait foundation. We have the Mainland Affairs Council in place. It's a government agency which deals directly with China, and I hope they can function. They can function well, and both sides can talk. That's my wish. My wish is to have a better cross-strait relations. That does not just matter to Taiwan. That also matter to 350,000 Indonesian citizens, migrant workers in Taiwan. Benny, I told you. Catherine, I told you. 350,000 people in Taiwan. Once war breaks out, they have to be evacuated. The number one plan is to evacuate 350,000 Indonesian people. My mom is now living in care home. Who care them? Who care her? It's the Indonesian migrant workers care my mom in most of the care homes in Taiwan. So if the war between Taiwan and China breaks out, the first one to be affected will be my mother. Would I like to see that? No. So I always emphasize cross-strait relations is crucial to people, to Taiwan, to people living in Taiwan. Another example, I just another 30 seconds. I recently, a few months ago, I met a Malaysian diplomat in Taiwan. I think it's the number 2 or number 3, but never mind. A diplomat in Taiwan, and we had a good chat, a dinner, and the question he asked me is, Hey, Dave, that's your question. It's not about how could we facilitate mutual relations, economic relations between Malaysia and Taiwan? How do we facilitate trade? Or he asked me, where is the best harbor or port to evacuate Malaysian citizens once the war breaks out? Can you imagine that kind of a question? The number one question he asked, not how to facilitate mutual relations between two sides. Rather, as he asked, where is the place to evacuate Malaysia's citizens once the war breaks out between Taiwan and China? So this is a serious concern. That's a wake-up call to me. That I was shocked. Why as a diplomat you ask the first question you ask is this, rather than how to promote a relation between two sides. So that's my point. So I always urge both sides. So not just the Chinese government, Chinese side, but also our side, Taiwan side, to open a dialogue, official or unofficial, government to government, track 2, track 1.5, and have a dialogue between two sides that can avoid misinterpretation, and then also can avoid the skirmishes, because now we no longer have the median line in the Taiwan Strait. We have to face the Chinese ships, Chinese military aircraft every day with a large number, and skirmishes could happen if there's no buffer zone between two sides. Okay, I stop here.
Okay, thank you. I think before Pak Benny just raised his hand, but before that, I think I would like to give Andy the floor first to respond to my question about cross-strait communication.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please, Andy.
And wait for a minute, Benny. I will be quite short. Yeah, as Yuan mentioned that before Taiwan came into office, so the official channels was there. There are many communication channels. There are many engagements among the peoples, between the people across the strait. But after Taiwan came into office, most of the official channels, all the official channels stopped. But still, as for the civilian engagements, it never stopped. To give you examples, I mean, for those 2 days. So today is I think it's the Thursday. For ever since Monday, I nearly met one Taiwanese people. I mean, for this every day we meet one of them, because there are many delegations. So there are people come to me and talk about how to do the business regarding carbon trade. And also this afternoon, one of my partners, who is also Taiwanese, we invest half and half to develop an AI tool. So we discuss the press conference of our AI product. We are going to make a press conference about our product by the end of next week. And also another day, I think it's on Tuesday, I went to the courtyard, which is displacing the collections from one Taiwanese collectors who collect porcelains. So civilian engagements never stop, and it is also very active now with because of the ending of the pandemic. That's my answer to your about the communication channel. Thank you.
Yeah, Andy. I think Benny, you just raise your hands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wira and Mr. Andy and Pak Yuan. I think Mr. Yuan has pointed out sort of very right that the number of Indonesian citizens or migrant workers in Taiwan is quite big. I think 350,000. So I think this is one of the priority of Indonesian government currently, and also the incoming government, because once if once the conflict is rise, or probably the Indonesian will be having difficulties or having problem on how to evacuate this migrant worker, because 350,000 is quite big. I think compared to the others migrant worker, I think it's almost 35% of other migrant worker. I think so. Indonesian government should prioritize on how to make what do you call it, emergency plan to evacuate this citizen. This is quite a big plan, I think. First, because Indonesian, if we have a national flag carrier, it's Garuda, but unfortunately Garuda is now quite well, now it's not to perform. So probably Indonesia government will mobilize not only civilian plane, but also they have to mobilize Indonesian military plane. As you know, Indonesia, maybe we have only 20 something Hercules transport. I think this is one of the difficulties probably for Indonesian government to deal with this, if there's any conflict between Taiwan and China. Hopefully not, right? So I think that's why this webinar is being conducted by us, by LSPC. So with each other, so there should be people to people relation, not only government to government. So I think this is one way of communicating with each other between Taiwan and of course this relation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
As I said at the beginning of the meeting, we understand your concerns. Not only Indonesia, but also there are many other countries who also have immigrant workers in Taiwan. We quite understand that. So that's why I understand your concern many countries in this region. But as you are speaking to me, I mean, as a Chinese, we understand your concerns. But then why are you worried about it? Because you worried if there arises the armed conflict. But how, why an armed conflict will arise? And as we understand, because of separatist movement supported by the United States. So as a Chinese, I would advise you, although I understand your concern, I would advise you in particular as Indonesia, which plays a quite important role of a mediator, quite important role of a stabilizer, to speak more with the United States, and also as for Asian peoples, I think we should try to be clever enough to not fall into the security trap.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And I think we have from NCCU, Mr. Lin, just raised his hand. I recognize the character because my Chinese surname is also Lin. I'm also my grandfather is also Hakka, just like Professor James Yuan. Okay, Mr. Lin, because I cannot read Chinese, so but I recognize the character, just that character, because that's my surname as well. Please, you raise your hand. Yeah, you have the floor.
Is this, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
okay.
Please go on.
I'm sorry, I didn't change my name because in Taiwan we don't use Zoom. So this is like, yeah, in my university Zoom is kind of like forbidden. So like, yeah, I'm so sorry. My name is Aswin Halim. Same like.
Oh, Halim, pantesan. No wonder.
Yes.
Sama-sama Halim. Okay.
I work for Professor James Yuan. Well, with the professor. And okay, Andy, hello, long time no see. And like, maybe if I may, I just add some viewpoint based on my experience living in Taiwan, almost total like up to 5 years. It's more than just migrant workers for Indonesia. Like when crisis erupted, it will affect everyone at home because, for example, was that our trade? Like was that few months ago, I got a chance to talk to former Indonesian ambassador to China, Mr. Orat Mangun. He mentioned that we export. This is for Taiwan. This is for Taiwan and can be confirmed in website Statista. Export only to Taiwan is $8 billion US dollar. For if you guys have chances to visit Taiwan, you know Indonesian product is everywhere. Indonesian product is like in every supermarket. Indonesian product is like flooding Taiwanese market. And to China, we in 2021, I think he said to me 100 billion, more than 100 billion, more than maybe 122, 124 billion. So if crisis erupted in Taiwan Strait, it's going to be big headache for us. Inflation, shaken price, like it will disrupt Indonesian economy like unprecedented. It will become very crazy. And also, I got chances to visit the company here. Sometimes Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. I saw the tray like baki in Indonesia, like a tray, and the tour guide said to me, one tray is 70,000 chips. And for comparison, in South Korea, they also produce chips like 1 trillion per year. And I was like, is this a joke? But apparently no. TSMC produce like especially the high tech, the very small nanometer, like 2 nanometer. That's already billion, maybe almost trillion per year. And they show me like, oh, this is microwave, 3 chips. This is your phone, 15 chips. This is your PlayStation console, 30 chips. So our daily, it's already something like rice for me. That's like your daily consumption. And then like it will disrupt. When it disrupt our electronics, and like I cannot imagine like life without electronics. So electronic supply chain will affect everyone in Indonesia, everyone. And then because you guys already mentioned spillover effect, South China Sea and everything. And because this afternoon Professor Yuan texted me like try to provide something. So I decided to talk to professor from Department of Anthropology in SCU. What happened if this crisis erupted, spillover happened in Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and most of Southeast Asian was that a country with high Chinese immigrant or Chinese descent citizen. There is some worry about anti-Chinese sentiment that will erupt it to something like, I think it happened before in Vietnam, like they start destroying Chinese factories or anything, or they will ransack Chinese business. And some people from, for example, RSIS, Nanyang, Lowy Institute, they already mentioned in some op-eds that this is in grassroots level gonna affect Southeast Asian countries. Like anti-Chinese sentiment can erupt it like anytime. So maybe I talk to. So that's from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Aswin. Sesama Halim di
Can I-
sini. Okay, Andy, please.
Yeah, I'd like to respond a little bit to Jiasong's intervention. First in Chinese. So Jiasong, you can understand Chinese?
I'm not fluent. I'm not so fluent. I'm so
Okay.
I'm not so fluent.
Okay. So first, I would like to ask you one question. So in case one of your province separated from Indonesia, let's say Palawan State. So there are many Chinese immigration workers. There are many Philippine immigration workers. So will you take it back or not? I think it's the same question that we are facing. I mean, if it is you who is in your shoes, so what will you choose? What is your response? That's my first response by asking you one question for the concerns. And second, about the anti-Chinese sentiment. So I think many of you may be aware that there is the news 1 week or 2 weeks ago from Reuters, who published in very detail how the Pentagon fabricated 300 Twitter accounts to make disinformation in Philippines. I think many of you may be aware of this news. So the main idea for the United States, I mean, the Defense Department, is that for those 300 Twitter accounts, which are only fabricated for the specific purpose of making disinformation campaign against China, so they use those 300 Twitter accounts to question the effectiveness of China-made anti-COVID vaccines, and also to again describe China as the origin of COVID-19. So I think this is only a tip of the ice mountain, because it can make disinformation in COVID-19. It can only make disinformation in Taiwan issue, in Xinjiang issue, in many other issues. The point is, China is very weak in fighting this kind of fighting back this kind of disinformation campaign, because it is United States who is holding the speakers of international medias. And also, recent years, many Chinese diplomats are described as the wolf warrior diplomacy. I think one of the key reasons is that for many Chinese, because they speak Chinese language, although I think they have a legal basis and they are reasonable, but that being said, they do not know how to nicely say no in English. So we are in a quite disadvantaged position in terms of disinformation campaign. So thank you. That's my response to your question and interventions.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I think Mas Aswin, do you want to respond to that first? Or...
Well, related to COVID, maybe yeah, Andy, everyone, I think maybe I'm wrong, but everyone in this Zoom chat, I think they use Beijing Keshi for vaccine, and all of us still alive. So COVID, I know what you. I use Sinovac vaccine. I'm still alive. That's regarding COVID. Regarding independent. Well, Indonesia lost one province, 1998. I know how it feels. I totally understand, but that's only me. I don't know about the others. And we still have separatism issues. And was that in Eastern Island of Indonesia, they are still rebels there. So yeah, and then this is maybe very personal for me, and my Chinese is not good, but yeah, I totally understand from the Chinese side. Maybe this is information like the ruling party of Taiwan, for the audience. I mean, in every political party, they have party charter, like ADART in Indonesia, maybe should I say? And in that party charter, it's written in Chinese, like Taiwan Kobuku, something like Taiwanese state, if I should translate to English. So yeah, maybe as long as they don't change that, I think yeah, of course, Beijing government will not establish communication with so across the strait, but that's my response. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm sorry, guys. Like there is a survey from Yusuf Ishak Institute in Singapore, like the State of Southeast Asia 2024 survey. That's like the how we react to, let's say, Chinese policy, U.S policy, Japan. Like that's like how Southeast Asia nations, the leaders think and see the problem. Maybe it can help to understand more how we see China, U.S, and Taiwan is also there. But yeah, Andy, I totally understand. I totally understand, but that's only me.
Thank you, Aswin. I think our friend from Bandung, Pak Yusa Juyandi, Head of International Relations at Pajajaran University. Oke, Kang Yusa, mungkin ada tanggapan? Oke, if not, Benny, any comment or response?
Yeah, I think with regard to the issue right now, cross-state relation, I think. Sorry, can you hear me? Right? Yeah, I think as Mr. Yuan said, I think it's better that both people, not only the government, but people to people or maybe business to business. But I know Taiwan is one of the biggest investor in China, right? I think how come the business community can talk with each other and how to push their government not to taking out on the hard what do you call it, hard stance toward, especially between two government. But the problem is, I think sometimes the politician can play up the nationalism issue or sentiment issue with each other. So I think this is why academic exchange, people to people exchange, and not only between China and Taiwan, but also in the region, for example, maybe ASEAN probably can be also can be useful, especially IIF. But again, but Indonesia can have concern in terms of what do you call it, optimizing their defense what do you call it, foreign policy or foreign policy strategy. I think this is one of the difficulties of Indonesia. I think because we claim that Indonesia is middle power, but of course some of domestic issue concern that's also make Indonesia is not too very active for the last 9 years. So I think this is very difficult. But again, I think for the basics principle of foreign policy in Indonesia, of course, would like to also encourage all the people who are in conflict will have more dialogue and keep on talking with each other, and then hopefully find a peaceful solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benny. And I think because we don't have any more questions and we're running out of time, but I would like to give our speakers just one more opportunity just, to have their closing statement. And I think we will start with, I think, Professor Yuan. I think if you have any closing statement for us.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, all the guests here tonight. And I think I still want to make a point that as long as I was able to sit down with Andy at the same floor, at the same event, without being expelled, which that happened all the time in the past decades. As long as we are able to do that, that will show other Taiwanese peoples, when they sit down with the Chinese people, they are also able to do that. This is my hope. And of course, I hope that in very near future, or in the future, that both sides can sit down peacefully. Whether or not when it relates to the unification or you know, that kind of issue, I hope, I never denied that that's one of the options, but that's a hope. At the moment, we deal with what we are seeing now, and what I see moving towards independence is a dangerous move for Taiwan. And we understand the high risk. We understand that means a war, and no people in Taiwan wants a war, and they understand the consequences. So I want to emphasize that. So again, I'm still try to point out that the open a dialogue and a kind of like for example, a CBM, confidence building measures between two sides, is a good way, at least for now, to first of all understand each other, and then ultimately we can sit down peacefully and live, coexist peacefully, and then we talk further. We can discuss further. Andy, you understand me, and I think people here understand my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yuan. And I would like to invite Andy to give closing remarks.
Thank you, Richard. Again, I would like to thank the organizer, Leipzig, for organizing this very important event. I think it's quite valuable to put me and Yuan together at the same floor. I think it's not that important that we agree with everything, agree or not, but the it is important that we sit together to discuss with each other, that we can still talk about everything openly and freely. I think that is very important. I would like to echo the point mentioned by Professor Yuan. And also, I would like to thank all the participants in this conference room for their valuable time, and also the interactions from Ukraine friends. So I think we need to more such kind of conversation. And I also, next time, I also expect there are more interventions from the audiences. And I think, given the position of Indonesia in the ASEAN organization, and your could play a more important role of kind of a stabilizer, of kind of a mediator. I think you can do more about that to bring all the players together. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And I would like to thank you, everybody who's here tonight. Thank you again to our speakers, Andy from GGI, Professor Yuan from NCCU, and thank you,
Just
Fasil.
take picture. Sorry. Take
Oh, I
picture
take
before the
picture.
close.
Thank
Please,
you
everybody,
to,
open your camera. Somebody will take a picture of us. Okay. Everybody is already. Okay, everybody. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. One more. Sorry. Sorry. One more, right? Okay. One more. 1, 2, 3. Nobody? 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. Okay.
Gentlemen, if you allow me 1 second.
okay, sure, Fasil.
Just one little phrase.
Okay.
Forever and ever. Please, everyone, I want you to remember one important thing. When there is a war, we can have 1,000 of conspiracy theories. Who is to blame? Who is guilty? Who is wrong? But there is always the guy who pulls the trigger and kills the people. We can argue that the Second World War, it's whoever is guilty, yeah? But we know who is. That's the point. Whatever happens, watch the roots, watch the one who pulled the trigger, watch the one who's dropping bombs, watch the one who is killing civilians, watch the one who is shelling the infrastructure. That's important. And don't go for conspiracies. Who instigated? Who is this, underground, blah, blah, blah. Remember that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pak Fasil, for joining.
Thank you, Excellency.
Bang Ical, thank you. Thank you, Bro Aswin.
Mr. Andy, Mr. Yuan, Professor Yuan, thank you very much for coming.
Bye.
Hopefully,
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Hopefully, our next meeting will be somewhere in Beijing or in Taiwan over a nice meal, or maybe in Kiev, celebrating.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.